The last 2 days have been dominated by a little bit of silence. Had some people asking me why I was driving in Pennsylvania yesterday. Why was there a late driver change needed? What was going on, and how's everything going? That's quite a question. So everything was going to plan. Wednesday, went and raced the horses. Kind of second with Britska, thought he was good. Second with Frilly, thought she should have won, but beaten by a much more experienced maiden. That Philly had stake experience and had raced quite a few times, almost 20 times, I think, up to date, which is shocking enough in its own. I was happy, right? Spend that money, wasn't happy, thought she needed to be tinkered with, so we took home, spend that money. I'll get to this portion of horses coming home in a minute because it's tied into a later portion of this story. So let's start from the start. Wednesday, race the horses. I'm going home. You ever get that feeling that you're just not going to have a good day? And finishing second with two horses was not that feeling. Now, maybe not everybody feels that way. Just, you know when you're going to have a bad day. I woke up Wednesday, I just had that feeling in my gut. Usually that leads to, maybe a couple of horses make breaks. Maybe, who knows? Could be anything. I'm on my way home. Now, as you guys remember, since July of last year, I had an exemption where I could go back and forth the border. You know where this is going. January 29th, there was a little bit of a hiccup where the guard had questioned why I had the exemption. I explained to him. And keep in mind, a lot of these guards don't know the rules that the government has put. That sounds stupid, doesn't it, me saying that? But if they're not up to date with exactly what is going on, they're in a bad position. And when I spoke to the border guards last week, they virtually told me, things change every time, and we don't know until you know. It's not like, they have a meeting with the border guards and say, okay, next week, you would think that's what they would do. Next week, this is what we're going to implement. This is what it's going to look like. And how could they? Nobody can factor in for a pandemic. Nobody knows week to week, month to month when this thing will be over, right? I guess it won't be over till it's over, I suppose. But what will the borders look like? What will your town look like? For those of you that are in the States, this might sound silly to you. You went through a lockdown, same as everybody did really in the world last year a little bit. But that's in your rearview mirror. Many of you are still obviously in places where restaurants are at 50% capacity or less. So you experience some of that, but in Ontario, it's different. We were in a total lockdown from December 24th, I think, straight through until last week for a lot of places. Now, I feel bad for the people of Toronto. So around Toronto, there's Toronto, York, and Peel region. Those regions have been shut down since mid-December, and their stay-at-home order, their lockdown order, has been pushed to March 8th. So it's been extremely difficult for those small businesses, those people. And obviously, it's a very delicate situation. People are dying, right? This is COVID. And however you feel about COVID, this isn't really the platform to do it. I'm not going to preach about what I think is right or what I don't think is right, because the job of all of our leaders right now is exceedingly difficult. That being said, I get to the border on Wednesday night. The rules have changed now. Now, I knew they were changing, whereas if you weren't considered a cross-border worker, an essential worker, you would need a PCR test, a negative COVID test, to get back into Canada. Now, this is a slippery slope because you can't deny a Canadian the right to come back into Canada, but the way the rules are set up, I suppose they can make you quarantine in a hotel in Toronto until you get your test. They can fine you, I suppose. And I don't know how legitimate that is, but that's what's taking place or will take place. So I get to the border. Now, every time you go to the border, it's subjective, right? First time you go to the border, when I got my exemption, that was the starting point. Every time I went through again, when I was exempt, it made it more likely that I'd be exempt next time, to the point where it was just a wave through almost. I get there the other day, and I get a guy that's clearly, he seems to be on a little bit of a power trip, right? And he starts berating me because, not berating, I guess, first questioning, then berating. He was angry that I somehow had an exemption and he didn't feel I should. Now, if you've ever been to the border, you know that you can't argue with border guards. It's like arguing with a police officer when he pulls you over for speeding. It's just no argument. They're not going to walk it back. So finally, I just snapped. I didn't snap. I said to Gemma, listen, you've been talking to me for 10 minutes. Virtually what I'm hearing is every border guard before you was wrong. So you know more than everyone else at the Canadian border. I said, I've also heard you tell me that my B1 is a visitor's pass and that it's not for work. And quite frankly, you're just wrong. 100% wrong. I had to get a B1 to drive Canadian horses that are Canadian-owned in the United States of America. That's what the B1 is for. Regardless of what you think it's for, that's not what it's for. So we go back and forth. Finally, I just say, you know what? Obviously, you're not having a good day. Clearly, I'm now not having a good day. What do we need to do? So he's going to tell me I have to quarantine. There's a hiccup. Sends me down. Now, I'm at Queenston Lewiston. Sends me into the building. But now you don't literally go into a building. You sit in your car and they come out to you. 4 of them come out. And this is what happened last time on the 29th. 4 come out. They're very nice. Quite the opposite of the gentleman I just spoke to. And guy looks at me and he goes, weren't you here last week? Aren't you a guy that had like horse equipment in his trunk? I said, yeah. I said, you got a good memory. He goes, what's the problem? I said, well, your comrade there, your partner, has decided that I'm not exempt now, and he's told me I have to quarantine, and I don't really know what I have to do now. I said, if I have to quarantine, and if this is going to be a full-time thing, then I guess I won't be going to the U.S. to take care of my American horses for a while. And he said, and he's very guarded, right? I'm sure he doesn't want to say, oh, that guy's wrong. Like, he can't override him. And it wouldn't be good for business to do that. So I can tell by the look on his face that he's conflicted. Let's just leave it at that. So he said, well, the rules the way they are now, if you're not exempt when you come into Canada, you have to have a negative PCR test. I said, well, sir, I show him the one that I got 2 weeks ago. I said, this was $138 to get in the States last time. I brought it all the way back to the border because I knew new rules were coming in. I wanted to be safe. I brought it with me just to be careful. No one asked for it. I said, you didn't ask for it last time because I was exempt. He said, and I had no problem with that. So I didn't get one this time. I said, why would I spend $138 when I can get one at home beside my house in Guelph for free? Which I do almost every time. He said, geez, I'm really sorry. He said, let me see what I can do. So he goes in. I'm sitting. Now I'm at the border. I'm a little embarrassed. I'm quite angry, actually, a little bit underneath. But at the same time, you know, I have to step back and look at this also and say, you know, for months and months and months, I've been able to go back and forth to the United States of America, and it's always kind of been a gray area, right? It's always kind of been, some of the guards kind of looked at my history and said, what do you do again? Okay. But it was never, oh, no problem. Yeah, I see that, thank you. It was always that tiny bit of hesitation at the border. So I assume it was a gray. And if you look at the rules of the exemptions, it says right on there, people that work on both sides of the border frequently as a job can be exempt from quarantine. Anyway, long story short, and for those of you that are Americans, you won't believe what I'm about to tell you. So he said, listen, Anthony, you have 3 options. He said, 2 of them I can give you as a border guard. 1 of them I can give you because he seemed like a nice guy and I want to help. Not as a border guard. He said, first one, he said, I can't deny you entry. You drive home, he said, nothing may happen. Nothing. He said, but I'm worried that you're going to get there and there's going to be a police officer in your driveway. And he's going to escort you to a hotel in Toronto, which I assume is away from Guelph, Ontario. And you're going to have to pay up to $2,000 to stay there while they do your test. Second option, you're going to get home tomorrow, the next day, some point. Police officer's going to show up on your door and he's going to fine you for breaking protocol coming into Canada. So I'm listening to him. I'm not liking the first two options. I stop him. And I said, I'm going to assume as my new friend, the third option you're going to give me is go back to the United States of America and get a negative PCR test. He said, yeah. What would you do? Well, what would you do? So he takes me around through a guard gate back to the border of the U.S. I pull up. The guard in the booth, the American guard in the booth, sees him chauffeur me through and sees my plate. He said, "What's your citizenship?" I said, "Canadian." "What's the problem?" He said, "Well, officer," I said this in a video the other day, I gotta be careful what I say. I said, "Well, officer, apparently new rules come in. I've been exempt since July. Now, the gentleman at the border today has said he doesn't believe I'm exempt. And therefore I'd have to quarantine, which I'll do if I have to. But along with the new rules came another rule that says that you have to have a negative PCR test to get into Canada without being fined or being checked into a hotel at your expense while they perform tests." He looked at me like I just told a lie. He's trying, I can see he's trying to find the right words. He said, "Are you telling me that your government has just told you you can't come back into your home country without a PCR test?" He said, "It appears that way." He said, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "No, sir." I said, "I'm a little frustrated, a little angry, a little embarrassed." I said, "But it appears that's what's taking place." He said, "You have a good night. Welcome to the United States of America." So I drive in. Now I'm furiously Googling places that will allow me to get this PCR test tonight. Now, there's two types of tests. The SNAP test, that's 20 minutes, and the PCR test. They said the SNAP test will not work. For whatever reason, I don't want to get into it. I have no idea. I'm not a scientist, but it seems ridiculous. These are the same tests. Anyway, whatever. I find a place open at 10:30, because now it's 10:30. I go in. I start the whole process of getting the test done. I said, "Well, what's your turnaround on these tests?" She said, 5 days. Excuse me? Because when I was in Pennsylvania, it was 30 hours. I said, 5 days? Is that just what you tell everybody, but it usually comes back in 1 or 2? She goes, "No. We say 5 days, and it comes back in 5, maybe 4.5 days. I said, "Wow." I said, "In Pennsylvania, it took me just over a day." She goes, "This is Pennsylvania." So, it's Thursday. It's Wednesday night. I said, all right. I drive back to Pennsylvania. 4 hours back to the Meadows. I get my test taken in the morning, Thursday morning. I say to Tim, if my test is back before the race is on Friday, before I have to call the judges on Friday, I'll leave. If not, I'll drive the horses. So 11:45, test isn't back. I call the place. They're like, "Sir, when they come in, they come in. I don't know what to tell you." I said, "I apologize, whatever." So I call the judges. They fine me. But I make the driver changes because I want to know what's going on with Oso Pine. Can Miss Brampton Beast do in that class? From the rail, you would think he'd have a pretty good shot, but it's very difficult to get away from the rail at the Meadows because it's a staggered gate. 4, 5, 6, they got to jump on you right out of the gate. she's always had okay gate speed, but never that scream off the car gate speed. So I was concerned, but I was confident I could get her off the gate well. And I did. I got away fourth. As soon as the 2 beat me out, he's going to be looking to drop the 2 favorites, 4 and 5 down. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I drive the horses. Oso Pine, I thought, was in a little bit of a funk and flat. I've seen him do this before. He did it on Jason in Ontario. He did it on Jason in Ohio. He did it on Carmen. He did it on everybody. He just gets in a funk. So I had said, you know what? They're screaming for horses in Ontario right now. Let's just take this guy home. I raced, spend that money on Wednesday. She was interfering a little bit. I said, you know what? Let's take her home. And then White Tiger also I'm bringing home simply because, as I said, they're looking for horses. So those 3 are coming home. Now, I didn't rectify my border issue. I got my test, but I didn't get it until Saturday morning. Right now. So now I'm driving. Now the problem is I'm a Canadian. I can't get onto the LabCorp. Usually you just log on. It would say negative. You print it off or take a picture of a screenshot of it and go to the border. But because I'm a Canadian, LabCorp doesn't operate, I guess. Or anyway, I couldn't sign in under my Canadian address. It only would allow me to put in a zip code. Therefore, I couldn't open my results. I had to wait to get a physical hard copy from the Med Express. Now, a little side note, the doctor, he said he'd expedite it, he did the best he could. He had asked me about the vaccinations in Ontario, and I said, it appears, they originally said that everybody in Ontario that wanted a vaccine would have one by June, but with the interruptions in the supply, I'm assuming that's pushed back a bit. I said, but to that, if Johnson & Johnson and the Azer, whatever, from England, I believe, gets FDA approval, or I guess Canadian FDA approval, then that should shorten that time. I would hope. I said, but I don't know. What do I know? He said, well, we hope we'll be getting everybody done here by May. I said, I hope to be back here by May. It'd be nice to get I don't know if I can even get vaccinated in your country. I have no idea. So, I guess that was a useless side note. On my way back to the border, had my negative test in hand. Now, when I get to the border, is the gentleman going to say you have to quarantine? Probably, I guess. Or is it going to be a little wave through like it's been before? I don't know. I never know. This is the baggage I carry around with me. So, how does that impact you? Well, if I'm quarantining for 2 weeks, I can't be at the barn for 2 weeks. Now, not the end of the world, I suppose. We gave a number of horses 2 weeks of jogging, anticipating get the corks off them. They'll need a week of training. And then, I suppose, if you don't mind, we could have a drone session after that. Today, they could have droned. I couldn't have been present. But at the end of the day, it wasn't a big deal because we have 20 horses that aren't droning. Or that aren't training, so wasn't much of a drone day anyway. I know there's a lot of people out there, especially the people in Ontario, that are waiting desperately to watch the horses go. And people have asked for the 3-year-olds, but the 3-year-olds are pretty well qualifying now, right? We do have some Ohio horses that will be making their final preparations to head to Ohio, I believe, 2 weeks from today. So potentially we could throw them in have a giant drone day if you want, if it's possible. For the horses that aren't racing, aren't ready yet, I think that's something we can do. I know I promised that to you today also, but a number of them went to train at Mohawk this week, so they weren't going to be droneable today. But I think we can orchestrate something for you in a couple of weeks. So that is how my week went. Knew my spidey senses were tingling on Wednesday. Now I think I know why. But I'll be home today, and if the worst thing that happens to Anthony McDonald is he has to quarantine for 2 weeks, like everyone else in the world, then so be it. It's not the end of the world. I'm healthy. The horses are going good. We're restructuring everything we're doing right now. 3 horses are coming home. 20 have qualified or are ready to go next week. So things are looking up. Our first start back from the lockdown, Tanzanite Tricks was a winner. Looked good. James got a little mathematical help there. Good for him. 32, 105, 2, 4, and 2. I like it. Now, that was a big mile for Tanzanite Tricks because if you look at her chart lines, she hadn't raced since November the 3rd. That says a lot about the qualifications in North America. Do you know in Europe that if you qualify, you never have to qualify again? You know, they just assume you're professionals, you're going to bring your horses ready to race, which we did, which we'll continue to do. So I was happy that November 3rd was the qualifying, or November 1st, I believe, was the qualifying threshold for Ontario. That allowed Tanzanite Tricks to race without qualifying, and it worked out very, very well. She jogged 2, 4, and 2. Back in to go this week. If she looks equally as good as she did last week, then we will look for a maybe a start at Mohawk with her, and then we'll take a look at what we have. You know, this is the time of year we missed a lot of racing with these horses, and you know, if Tanzanite Tricks isn't going to be a stake horse in New Jersey, then putting good lines on her leads to potentially probably getting a good price for her and selling her. So we'll see. We have to roll with the punches that we've been given. We weren't able to race the end of December into January, now the middle of February. That cost a number of our horses that weren't able to race an opportunity to make some earnings, while the more experienced sophomores are on the shelf. They're coming back now. So puts us in a tough spot. We'll see how that goes. But hey, a great start for the stable in 2021 in Canada. 1 for 1. What else do we got? Staking took place already. We got that taken care of. We are moving into March now, and this is going to be a pretty heavy month. And I appreciate everything everybody did. We did not receive a number of American checks. Now, luckily, we were able to move some stuff around and make do. But I think the total American checks we received from February 1st to February 15th was 2. Not your fault. I was very worried this would happen, so hopefully the mail service picks up in March. I'll be making the selections for the staking coming this month, and then we'll see how it looks. Now, last month I think it was 13,000 US and 8,000 Canadian. It will be much, much, much more this coming month. So if you could get those checks out as quickly as you could, March 1st, that would be great. What else do we have going on? Nothing racing today. Our next horse racing, I believe, will be Tanzanite Tricks, and then we should see a number of horses racing shortly thereafter. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm literally on the road back home. A little unexpected detour, and what happens at the border, I don't know. There's no need texting me and emailing me and asking me what happened. There's a very good chance that I'll have to quarantine for 2 weeks when I get home. Whatever. You know, this will be over at some point in the summer. I will be going to Ohio and Pennsylvania in the summer. This will likely negate me being able to go there through March, April, and likely May, but I'm sure everybody will have a good handle on everything. Listen, our better horses, Fox Valley Britska for Tim is trotting great, looking great. Aaron did a good job with him his last start. I suspect anybody will get along great with that little guy the way he's doing his work right now. Frilly Fringes raced great the other day, raced good for Dave, our first start. Him and I had talked actually a little bit. You know, for a guy that wins so many races, he really does take the time to talk about the horses. Even Miss Brampton Beast, I went up and said to him yesterday, I'm really sorry, you know, I'm staying. He goes, no, Jesus. He said, you know, if you're stuck here, you should be driving the horse. And I talked, leaving afterwards, I said, you know, Tim's got her better now. She wasn't running in. You know, if you could get her to the front, I think she's a winner in her next start. He said, I'll take care of that. And then Won My Heart Hanover Hunter drove good when he was racing her. So we have the series is coming up for Frilly Fringes, Won My Heart Hanover. Very important series is coming up for them, both in March and April. Jason is heading back to Ohio. I won't be able to drive the horses in a Hackett. Now, if I do have to go across the border, I guess I could time it so I'm there for a couple of weeks, and then I'll have to miss time when I come back. So this is an important time for our babies, and I need to focus on that. So I am really, my biggest concerns, the butterflies in my stomach right now are twofold. One, what are they going to say at the border? And two, when Jason starts racing these horses, how are they going to perform, right? I'm not going to be there. So it's not that I'm a magician. It's not that Jason McGinnis needs me there for the horses to perform well, but I do know them very well. So hopefully they don't need me. Hopefully they do well leading up to and into the Hackett, and hopefully we can get our 2021 underway. Listen, we all know we've had to make sacrifices over the last year with COVID-19. We all know that this is a tricky time. I know the governments and the medical officers and officials are terrified of these variants, and I know there's a lot of people out there shaking their head saying, it's all for nothing. But I guess to be pragmatic, I guess to play devil's advocate, I could easily say, well, it could have been a lot worse. Maybe if we weren't as safe as we are, maybe if we weren't having these lockdowns, maybe millions more people would have died. So if my part is, I'm not exempt right now, then so be it. It's not the end of the world. We'll take care of our babies. We'll get 2021 underway. The border will open when people get vaccinated. You can't say you need to get vaccinated and then continue to have lockdowns. People aren't going to be okay with that. I'm not okay with that. But I will wait until I get vaccinated. So hopefully by June, the border has loosened up as people start to get vaccinated into the summer. My biggest goal, aside from the stable and doing well and having lots of fun and winning races with you together and mingling for the summer, is obviously getting my family over across the border this summer. So nobody knows how that will look. I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic. Regardless, I will be. Things will seem normal into the summer, and we'll pick up where we left off in 2020, hopefully. So that is it. Not a ton to talk about. We only had one horse racing on the Canadian side, Tanzanite Tricks. Jason, obviously Johnny and everybody in the top barn had prepped her. Jason ended up with her. He raced her. She did well, so good for everybody involved there. A number of horses getting ready to race in Ontario. I know Kevin has asked that. We got to the bottom of why Italian Grit made a break, popped a little splint left front. That's going to have to be cryoed. He may miss next week's qualifier. Not the end of the world. We'll get him qualified and get him going. Broadway Rolls going to the vet just to have a little checkup. She's going to be in to go shortly thereafter, and I would say next weekend. And then Taima Houdini also looked like he qualified well. Don't believe me, just watch. Looked like he qualified well. War We Welcome is trained well. She's going to be qualifying next week. Just a lot going on, which is good. It's good. It's all good. So that is it. As I drive into the unknown, heading to the border, I guess we'll see what happens. But regardless of news, I don't really care. If I have to quarantine, fine. I have to quarantine. It's not a big deal. If I don't have to quarantine, that's great too. But this, regardless of what they're about to tell me at the border, this will change the way that I maneuver over the next couple of months. So I don't think it's a big deal. It's not the end of the world, but it is important that we're able to change on the fly. Tim does a great job. Jason does a great job. Both stateside. We're looking to get Yes and Cavill Hanover racing over the next week. So hopefully everything is firing on all cylinders in the U.S. over the next month, with or without me present. So that is it. A little bit of a lackluster opening, but news of the day is obviously where I'm at now. We will move forward. I will get home today one way or another, and I will talk to you all very, very soon.